Hello everyone and welcome back to CarWale. I'm Bilal sitting in the first ever BMW iX1. And as you might have guessed by the name, it is the electric equivalent of the X1 and it is the fourth all-electric offering from the Bavarian car maker here in India after the i4, the i7 and the iX. And you might also know that the other German car makers Mercedes and Audi don't have an electric equivalent of their entry-level SUVs, that is the Q3 and the GLA. So the only direct rival for the BMW iX1 we have here is the Volvo XC40 Recharge. Now you can buy the iX1 in India in only one version, which is priced at around 66.90 lakh rupees ex-showroom, making it the most affordable electric BMW you can buy in the country. So in this video, we are trying to find an answer that can the iX1 be your perfect entry into the world of premium brands as well as EVs? We'll also try to consider whether the iX1 be the only car in your garage. So let's begin. Okay, so here's the thing. If I were to hide that green number plate, would you be able to differentiate between the standard X1 and this iX1? Well, it would be difficult because there are no prominent giveaways hinting at the electric nature of this iX1. Now talking about the new gen X1, I personally love the way it looks, especially when compared to the first two generations of the X1. It is edgier and more aggressive with sharp cuts and creases everywhere, and it has a proper SUV stance rather than a crossover or a hatchback on stealth-like stance. Coming back to the iX1, it gets the familiar BMW design language in the form of this new headlamp design. It has the newer angular signature, which is now the new design identity for all modern BMWs, which earlier used to be the good old angel eyes. Now then you move to the center, you get the traditional kidney grille, but here instead of the vertical louvers, it's all flat and closed. There is, however, one eye hidden inside this grille. That's the only giveaway for you that this is an BMW electric model. Now the silhouette might appear the best angle to look at the iX1, but then you move to the back and there's a lot going on around here. So we'll start with the tail lamps first, which is in a 3D or three-dimensional design and it sticks out of the bodywork. And then you move lower down and there are so many cuts and creases. Even the bumper, it sticks out of the body frame. Adding to the sportiness is this roof-mounted spoiler, and lower down you have a race car-like diffuser. But on either side of it, it's an EV, so it only have an empty cutout for the exhaust tips. Now you can have the iX1 in three color options. There's white, there's black, and what we have here, the grey. It's not exactly Nardo grey, but it still looks quite classy. So what do you think about the design of the BMW iX1? Do let us know your opinion in the comment section below. Similar to the exterior, even the cabin of this iX1 is very familiar to its ICE brethren. So when you step inside, you are welcomed by this new curved display, which is now a trademark of all modern BMWs. It is controlling most of the functions with minimalistic buttons in the center console. Now coming to the center console, it is a floating console, but I have a big complaint from it. You see, BMW has decided to eliminate its iconic and the most famous iDrive controller from this center console. Now if I have to control the touchscreen, I have to literally reach out to it, and especially when driving, it's not very convenient, especially because it's so complicated, which I'll get to it in some time. Now complaints of the center console aside, I love the design of this new steering wheel. It is of the right dimension, it is meaty at the right points, and it also has a metal aluminum mesh-like design here in the third spoke with an M logo sitting handsomely underneath. Moving on, behind the steering wheel is this new proprietary curved display that BMW first introduced with the iX, but is also offering with the most affordable EV, the iX1. Now this curved display, like most curved display or the flat panel display that modern cars get, it has two different screens stacked on either side. Now on the left, the infotainment screen, it measures around 10.25 inches and it controls most of the function. But the interface, or the OS 8 that BMW likes to call, it's not very user-friendly either. It has gotten a bit complicated. There are a lot of tiles when you go into the menu, and I have to search through a lot and spend a lot of time to get the simplest of things done. Now, I love the seats up front. They offer you a good amount of support and in all the right places, especially when you are belting out all those twin motor setup. But the same cannot be said about the second row. You see, once you get in, you would realize how high the floor is. Now, this is an EV, so obviously the batteries are placed underneath the floor, which directly reduces the space or the height between the seats and the floor. So what that results in, you have an awkward sitting position with your knees placed quite higher than you'd want them to be. But luckily, the recline angle here in the second row is good enough. So even though your knees are at an awkward position, your recline angles makes you or gives you a more relaxing posture. Now, in terms of space, I would say there's decent amount of leg room. The seats are not set to my driving position, but they are set slightly a bit back. But I do have some amount of leg room, and I can tuck my feet underneath the front seats. The headroom, it's decent for my frame, but taller passengers might find the place to be slightly cramped. The large windows do help with the overall ambience, and it's further helped by the large panoramic sunroof. You also get separate air vents and two Type-C USB ports in the back. Now, the boot space at almost 500 liters is more than adequate as well. But there's this typical German problem of the spare wheel taking up most of the usable space. The iX1 we have here in India is quite feature loaded. It offers a dual zone climate control, electrically adjustable seats with massage function, a panoramic sunroof, wireless smartphone connectivity and charging, auto parking assist. But even at this price, the iX1 doesn't offer a 360-degree camera, ventilated seats and a heads-up display, apart from more ADAS features such as adaptive cruise control and autonomous braking. Now, behind the wheel of the BMW iX1, but let's get the numbers out of the way first. So the iX1 is available in India in only one version, which goes by the name xDrive 30, which denotes that it has all-wheel drive. Now the battery pack, it's rated at 66.5 kWh, which means it has a battery pack which is smaller than its rival, the Volvo XC40 Recharge and even the Kia EV6 GT. Now the battery sends all the juice to motors mounted on each axle, and both the motors have a combined output of around 313 bhp and almost 500 Nm of twisting force. Now BMW claims 0 to 100 km/h time of the iX1 is 5.6 seconds. As for the ride and handling, I love the way the steering is weighted here in the iX1. It's not very light and it's not very heavy either. It is very user friendly. Like, it has nice control to it. Even if I want to drive in the city bumper to bumper traffic or here on the highway, I don't feel a difference in the way the steering is weighted, and that makes it more predictable. It's also very quick. It goes less than 2 turns or 2.5 turns lock to lock, and it makes the entire car feel very nimble. So the maneuverability of the iX1 in the city, traffic commute, even the size of the iX1 is quite perfect in my opinion. So it doesn't feel very ungainly, and the dimensions of the entire car feels perfect, and it tends to wrap around you. So when you want to zip past through the traffic like this, helped by the boost from the EV motors, it is very addictive to drive, and it is fun to drive, I admit, as well. Now, as for the ride quality, it is a BMW after all, so it is set on a firmer side. But over the week that I've spent behind the wheel, it never gave me a reason to complain. So the slow speed ride, it's fairly absorbent. You do get all the irregularities felt inside the cabin, but it doesn't get jarring at any point of time. Now, for any EV, the biggest challenge today is the range it has on offer. And the 66.5 kWh battery pack that the iX1 comes with has a claim range between 400 to 440 kilometers. But we at CarWale won't take manufacturer's word for the claim range, right? Like every other EV we test at CarWale, we did a real-world range test for the iX1, where we drove it from when the battery was at 100% to completely draining out the battery to a point where we had to push the car to the charger. Now the BMW iX1 went 412 kilometers in the CarWale range test, which is almost 93% efficient compared to its claimed WLTP figures. Usually these figures hover around 75 to 85%. And if you're interested, the other electric BMW we tested, the iX, achieved 89%, and the Volvo C40 Recharge, the direct rival we have here, it achieved 94.5% of its claimed range, going just over 500 kilometers on a single charge. Lastly, we come to the brake energy regeneration system. Since it's an EV, it is one of the crucial part of its battery management system. But here in the iX1, with BMW's latest OS update and this curved screen and the newer center console, it has become a bit complicated. Because right now I have no idea what regen setting I am in. And if I have to change my brake energy regen setting, I have to roll through a number of menu options in this infotainment screen. And I have to do it while driving. It gets complicated when I have to roll through the system when the car is stationary. Imagine doing it while on the move. So I have to go into the menu, then I have to search for drive settings. Then in the drive setting, I have to select drivetrain and chassis, and on the left hand side, it shows me energy recovery in D mode. So then I have options of adaptive, high, moderate and low. But another setting in this brake energy regen system is adaptive. Now what it does is it has an intelligent way on its own of deciding what level of energy regeneration it wants to do. Now it is not exactly holding me back when I'm trying to accelerate because when I left off in a normal high setting, it would start braking on its own. In the adaptive, it won't do that. In an adaptive setting, it would rather try to cruise the car as much as possible, reducing the charge or the load on the battery. This makes the battery consumption more linear and more efficient. Now this 66.5 kilowatt hour battery pack does support a fast charging of up to 130 kilowatt. So a 10 to 80% charge is theoretically possible in under 30 minutes, provided that you do find a charger that fast. We, however, did use a 60 kilowatt hour fast charger and it managed to juice up the battery from 35% to 75% in just 20 minutes, which honestly isn't too bad for everyday usage. We were using a public charger and we barely slipped out for a cup of coffee. And then when we came back, it had added almost 100 or 150 kilometers of range. And if you are interested, it only costed us little over 400 rupees for that charge. Although it has the same disadvantages as the standard X1, like the complicated touchscreen, some missing features, not so great cabin ergonomics and a slightly weird seating angle for the rear passengers, the iX1 has many likable aspects too. It is, in a typical BMW fashion, fantastic to drive. There's good amount of driver's involvement despite it being an EV. It's also nimble and is the right size to drive in the city without feeling ungainly. And of course, it does look handsome as well. At the end of the day, the BMW iX1 is not just another version of the standard X1. It has a different personality altogether. As for the question of it being your first luxury EV, well, I don't see a reason for you to not consider the iX1. As we have established that there are no other luxury EVs at this price point except the Volvo Recharge Twins. So where the X1 could be your entry into the luxury brand, the iX1 could be your entry point into the world of luxury EVs.